Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all awake. Very happy to be here. Wake you up a little bit. I'd like to start with a little priming of your brains this morning, because I guess that's very important when we're starting about discussing the whole AI thing. And as we say, keep an open mind for a different view. So, we humans have a love and hate relationship with technology, right? We love every new gadget we see. We kind of hate it, though, how quickly and at what pace technology changes, especially in the workplace. Right? There's a lot of disruption going on, and, well, that's how we operate. And I'd like to start off with a short example. Does anyone in the audience know which of these arrows is longer? No one? Any idea? Any clues? Gentlemen over here. You say they're the same length? Do you see that from there? You see that? Okay. Or have you seen that before? You've seen it before, right? And that's very important for today's message. You've probably read a lot of stuff about artificial intelligence. You've seen a lot of stuff. Not everything is true. I made the bottom one slightly shorter. So, talking about priming your brain, right? Started with an open mind this morning. Look at all the new things. There's a lot of stuff AI can do, and a lot of stuff you might not have anticipated, but there's also a lot of stuff that it can't do yet, right? So essentially, we're overestimating the short-term impact of artificial intelligence. That's why it's a hype subject. Everybody's talking about it. There's half the people that are afraid of it, and the other half of the people that think we can solve everything with artificial intelligence. Neither one is true, but we're going to get to that. We're also underestimating the long-term impact of what artificial intelligence can do. And I guess that's why we're all here today. So AI isn't taking us over. If someone is taking over, it's a person or, worst case scenario, a country that's properly using AI, and we're not catching up. To get an idea and a feeling of the audience, I got 4 questions for you. And I'd just like you to raise your hands if the question applies. The first question is, who of you in the audience, and I guess that should be everybody this morning, otherwise you're in the wrong room, is looking at or interested in artificial intelligence? Well, that's good. No one is in the wrong room. Second question, who of you is actually using it? And I'm not talking about asking Siri about the weather. Like 5, 6, 7 hands up, 8 hands. Third question is, who of you knows how it's working? Okay, we got about 7, 8 hands as well. Last question, who of you has a rough understanding, and I'm not saying you have to be able to build that, but a rough understanding of how a car like the one in the back works? Like there's tires, steering wheel, motors, brakes. Who has a rough understanding? A lot more people. And that's pretty much our biggest problem, especially in Europe, right? It's like, oh, AI, that's just magic. No, it's not. It's math, all right? And it still stays like that. So very, very important. And the biggest message I want you to take away today, we're going to come back to that later, is the first rule of AI according to Steven Pinker, and I would completely subscribe to that, is that the hard problems are kind of easy for AI, and I'm going to show you what that means, whereas the easy problems are pretty hard. An easy problem is like, dear robot, please find the door, go get the newspaper, bring me a glass of orange juice, and come back to my bed. We still haven't gotten there yet, right? After 50 years of research. There's other stuff on the hard problems that we can do, and I'll show you that live later. Another problem we have with AI is the lack of talent. If you look at the numbers, the company with the largest amount of AI researchers is by far Google, that has 1,400 people working for them in this specific area. There's a lot of people nowadays that say, we can do AI because obviously it's hype, but realistically speaking, there's maybe 10,000 experts on the planet. The planet right now thinks they need 10 million experts, which is probably not true either, but somewhere in between. So there's a sparsity. Then again, we all agree, and depends on well, you're listening to, but essentially there's going to be more jobs that are going to be created through AI than there's going to be jobs that are going to be disrupted or destroyed or just, well, get lost because of AI. The problem being, and this is why we're here, it might well be that we're going to lose 1,000 jobs because of AI in Helsinki. That might create 2,000 jobs. But worst case scenario, it's going to be 2,000 new jobs in Shanghai, which doesn't help Helsinki a lot. And that's pretty much why we're here today. This is an estimated net effect, and that does not count in Brexit, because it might get even worse for the Brits here. Any Brits in the room? Okay. So let's talk about them. If you look at the jobs, and that's where I say the hard problems are easy. If you look at the potential of replacing jobs, it's not your gardener. It's not your chef, right? That's going to be replaced by AI. It's the jobs in the financial industry, in the accounting business, in the legal business. Those who, most of them today, still think, hey, I have a great job, great salary, great benefits, everything. Yes, but there's a big wave coming, and be prepared. I'll show you stuff we do with the big 4 accounting companies today. And if you're somehow working in tax and you're not 58 years old and about to retire pretty soon, close call, okay? Another important thing when you're thinking of, and I guess that's why you're all here, of implementing artificial intelligence in your companies, whatever processes you have, because I'm a pure techie, I have no idea what you guys are doing, depending on what you do. We had a lot of studies running together with Carnegie Mellon University about how we judge machines when they make mistakes. And by the way, AI is going to make mistakes, right? A lot of times our customers go like, hey, can you guarantee me that the machine will always do it right? I'm like, no, I can't guarantee you that the machine will make mistakes, right? But it will make a lot less than a human, probably on the certain application field. So if you applied, and that's funny to hear, if you applied the same strict scrutiny on judging a human as you do with a machine. How many people say, I'm not using Siri anymore because it always misunderstands me, right? I don't use these kind of features. And you're probably right. If we did the same thing, right, after 2 or 3 mistakes, we usually distrust the machine. If you did the same with your wife or your husband, and you start with breakfast in the morning, you'd have to think about divorce during lunch, right? This is how many mistakes we humans make. But I'm a human myself, so I can say this. We're very forgiven when it comes to mistakes that humans make because we're used to it, because we make mistakes all the time, right? If a machine makes a mistake, it's like, oh, I'm not going to use that anymore. So keep that in mind and bear that in mind when you're trying to implement that in your company, not just like, the C-level decided we're going to do this and this with AI and then just push it to your workforce. We've seen a couple of projects where people essentially sabotage that. And they can do that easily because they're not going to use the software. So it's going to cost you money and it's not going to solve, right? You're going to show them that it gives you an actual benefit. And I want to show you how computers and brains are different and what's the biggest problem about, hard being easy and easy being hard. So we're going to do a little game now, and I'm going to ask people in the audience, I'm going to show you a picture, a little scribble I did this morning. And then I'm going to show you another scribble, and all you have to tell me is what you think this is. And by the way, there's no right or wrong answer, and you'll be able to do it because you're human. It's very simple for a human. It's very hard for a machine. So this here is a car. Okay? So I'm going to ask the gentleman right here, Petri Hakola. Petri, what do you think this is? A truck. I would agree. I'm going to ask Teppo right next to Petri. If you look at this, what do you think this is? A train. Unless you come from a city with a lot of people, then you might say traffic jam, same thing. Okay, simple. You're obviously right. I'm going to go over here. Mika Nordström. Can I ask you a question? Okay. This here is a table. There's 2 people sitting at it. Okay? What do you think this is? It's 2 tables with 3 people, okay? And I'm going to ask another Petri. What do you think this is? More tables and even more people. Correct. How hard was that in your brain? Changing context like this. Super simple as a human, right? None of you stalled. None of you crashed their brains. None of you had to reboot. None of you said something completely weird. Because you're human. Super easy, super hard for a machine to do that. I'm going to give you another example. If you look at this picture, when I say that trophy, that one with the BMX bike, does not fit into the suitcase because it is too big. What do you think it is? When I say the trophy does not fit into the suitcase because it is too big. Miko would say it's the trophy that's too big, and Miko is completely right. Now, if I said the trophy does not fit into the suitcase because it is too small, what do you think, Pazzi? What does it mean or refer to? The trophy does not fit into the suitcase because it is too small. What is it? Pardon me? Okay. Anyone else know? The suitcase. Exactly. Now, why did you know that? Context. A rough understanding of what it actually means, right? You could say, oh, he knows everything about volume and sparsity and how things fit into other things and 3D rooms and everything. Yeah, that's what you used, right? But that's very hard for a machine. So, excuse me? Yeah, that too. Yeah, we're not going to go too deep into that. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is words exist because of their actual meaning. Once you've gotten the meaning, and this is how humans work, you can throw away the words. I have no idea what kind of words or what succession and sequence of words I used in the last 11 minutes. I do not remember that. You do not remember the words I used in the last 11 minutes. That is what a classical machine or deep learning algorithm would do, though, in trying to find a pattern. And now we're coming to the main thing that we're doing research on and that we're doing with our customers. Language is not that easy. Right? We tell our customers, as long as we park in the driveway and drive on the parkway, language is not as simply structured as we would like it to be. So semantics is very, very important, and that's probably still the last domain where we humans are much better than machines, because we've all solved these problems very easily. It didn't come hard, right? Now, some of you might ask the question, what are semantics? And here's a pretty good example. There was one intended meaning of this sign, and there's another meaning which is funny. Sometimes people don't see that, but that's what semantics is all about. It's about interpreting. It doesn't matter which language you use. If you say das Auto, the car, la voiture, it essentially means the same thing, right? So the meaning of what you're extracting, I don't know what it's called in Finnish. Same thing, and that's what it's all about. So there's stuff that's already solved today. Is you're trying to find an adult female in a picture or a video stream, and there's actually live examples back there, where we can see that, where the system says, oh, here, you got a tie, that's a person. That is solved. The machine can do that better than a human today, especially if you have 1 million pictures in just 1 hour time. Right? That's something we already solved with artificial intelligence. Something machines can't do yet, or have a very hard time of doing, is I'm going to ask you a simple question again. And according to our research, it takes roughly 30 to 50 milliseconds for a human brain to process that and to get the right answer. No human was ever wrong in their test. I'm going to ask the gentleman, another Miko, with 2 Ks in this case. So Miko, looking at those 2 pictures, who do you think, from the adult females, we both see the adult females, they're marked in red, who do you think is the teacher? Bottom right, correct. Didn't take you long, wasn't hard, was it? A machine couldn't tell you that because, again, context, right? You know what teaching means. Yes, some in the room would say, well, who tells us that the top left is not a teacher either? Yes, right, but again, that's details. So that's the main thing, and that's the most important part. So we had a cooperation with Facebook, and you might have read about that. About 10 months ago, Facebook turned off a chatbot. And in the media, the way it was, whether it was Times Magazine or Forbes, they said chatbots created their own language, and therefore they were switched off. And more or less, they suggested that the Terminators are coming, which they are not. The whole idea was to create a machine that is able to negotiate with a human, right? So the machines were let to train with each other because machines can then negotiate 10 million times per second and therefore learn. And what happened was, and that's an excerpt of the actual discussion that Bob and Alice, two AIs, had with each other, trying to negotiate who's going to get the balls and who's going to get something else. If you're looking at that, and that's after a couple of weeks of training of an artificial intelligence on natural language, you find out that this is kind of hard to understand from a human perspective. And that's exactly the reason why it was turned off. Language is not statistically significant in terms of you can't grasp it with a standard statistical means. Therefore, classical machine learning won't do the job. Right? What happened here is the machines had enough time to transform natural language into something that's statistically significant. And obviously, when Alice wanted something more, Alice started to say to me more often. If you say to me 8 times, it means you want it more than if you say to me 5 times. Super easy for a machine. If each and every one of us talked like that, we could copy or provide a machine that will be able to have a conversation with you over the period of 1 hour. We all know that's not possible. Everybody who's got like an Echo bot at home and stuff like that, after like 2 or 3 sentences, you go like, no, that doesn't make any sense now anymore. So we cannot keep up a conversation yet, right? Very hard for a machine to do. There's so much stuff. So what do semantics do? And we're all going to come down to real-world applications. If you look at text like Tom runs from Mike, you can extract them. That's what we do, a semantic model of what do we think that means. That's exactly what you're doing right now within my talk. You're trying to understand what I'm trying to tell you. If I'm doing a somehow proper job, whatever you have in your brains is slightly similar to what I have in my brain. It won't be a one-to-one copy. That'd be outstanding, but I'm not that good at that. But I hope you grasp the meaning, and that's what you're doing. So the meaning of that would be one actor is following behind another actor. That's something you can extract from that. Now, if you went with that with classical machine learning, you could say, oh, no, we can do that with statistics. I can look at the subject, which is Tom. I can look at the object, which is Mike. And I can look at the process word, in this case a verb, which is to run. Super simple. I can model that. I can train that. I can give it a lot of examples. Yes, you could. Well, what if I said Mike tries to catch Tom? Different subject, different process word, different object, completely different grammar. Pretty much, in the very same context, the exact same meaning from a human perspective. Why? Because you have semantics. You understand the actual meaning. You could probably all agree that this might be the same thing, just, different formulation. Or you could say stuff like, no, we're going to go with a verb in the process where Tom is running the business. There's run in there. There's Tom in there as a subject. It means something completely different. Or my favorite one, Mike's nose is running. Right? Someone is running. We all know that running in this case doesn't even mean running, not like in the former sense. So that these things are similar, that's exactly what we're doing. Let's say we're trying to teach a machine. And obviously, we're not as good as a human, but we're much faster in what we do. So I'll show you that. And that's what we did with a company spin-off that we made for university. I'm more than happy to show you that stuff live later if you're interested. So what we're looking at, when we're looking at AI, is replacing what we call the drudge work or the monkey business. Stuff where you go like, it takes a very long time to do this. And now coming back to hard is easy. If you're a lawyer and you're working through a 600-page contract, you can realistically work through 40 to 50 pages a day without missing something. So it'll take you roughly 12 days to work through this contract. Times, depending on where you work, $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 an hour, sums up to a certain number. You can do the same thing with a machine in under a second with the same quality, right? So again, the legal tech is slowly starting up. 3 years ago, a lawyer said there will never be a machine be able to replace us. Now, if you're starting law, studying in Stanford, they essentially tell you at the very first lecture, try to specialize. If you're just doing standard stuff, a machine's going to do that for you. Faster, cheaper, and better. Why? Because humans make a lot of mistakes. If you ask 5 lawyers the same case, you get like 7 opinions back. right? That's the thing, because does the machine, can you guarantee it doesn't make mistakes? No, but you all make mistakes. It doesn't make a difference, right? So the machines are not perfect, but they're a lot better, specific use cases, than the humans. So when you do something like this, you're obviously looking for something like this, and that's the right attitude, going like, oh, I want to improve that, because using this analogy, we have a lot less farmers than we had 100 years ago. We still produce more food. It's not because the farmers are running faster. No, they have machines to help them do that. And that's not a bad thing. But, and that's very important, again, when you're trying to think into applying AI, and take that with you for today's discussion and things you want to take from this conference. Please do not look at this and go like, oh, if I have this machine, then if that blue field is my job, and it takes me a year to do it, and now I'm going to get a tractor and a harvester and all these kind of things, and now I'll be able to do this much quicker. Oh, I can get rid of 20 people. No, it doesn't work that way, right? We're not replacing people. We're just helping people. And if you're looking at a very strict ROI calculation, we go like, oh, our business is too young yet. I mean, realistically speaking, AI implementations that actually work haven't been around for more than 5 years. So there's a lot of business where we don't have an ROI yet. You can always lie on a spreadsheet to your CEO because he needs that, and that's fine. But realistically speaking, there's no ROI. So the attitude which you should look towards if you're doing AI integrations with your businesses, if that's your job, and if you can automate parts of that and help your people to get rid of the drudge work, this are the other fields that you might want to have a look at, because now you can do more. It's not about getting rid of people, it's about being able to do more. And why do we need that? Well, the human ability to learn is limited, right? We have just that much processing power in our brains. Some voices say it's actually declining. I don't know if that's true or not. But the amount of information that we create every day, it's just staggering, right? We passed it by the year 2000, and then that does not include cat videos. Everybody who's got anything to do with business knows there's so much information, so much text, so little time. So rather, there's people where I say, if I sent this person an email, because they're trying to manage their life through email, which doesn't work in my opinion. If I sent that person an email, or if I forget it myself, it doesn't make a difference, right? It's entropy. Too much information. Well, actually, it's not information, it's too much text. There's no information in there because you can't read it. If you're an engineer and you're building trains, which is some of our customers, you get 50,000 documents included with that request from your customer, which might be the country of Norway in this specific case. Each of these documents, 100 to 500 pages long. There's no way in hell you'll be able to read that and understand all of that. There's as many people as in this room trying to work through these documents, trying to find the pitfalls. Yeah? But Mikko might find something where he says we can't do this, and I am not even talking to him because we're too many people. Entropy, too much information. So the only way of closing that gap is if we have a machine that narrows down the search space for us, does all the pre-processing, so to speak. If I had 200 people that help me mark the right parts and say, Sven, this is something you have to look at. And if you look at it from an economic perspective, and that's also pretty interesting, this here is a global study of how the world is developing in terms of people that are actually producing stuff and people that are living on this planet, right? We're going to be, 12 billion people by the end of the century. We're getting older and older. This is a global study, so if you're thinking of immigration might be the solution, well, if you're thinking immigration from Mars and Jupiter, yes, but as far as I've been told, there's not that many people up there. So the gap that we have here, that's going to come by 2050, which is huge in terms of productivity versus people living here on this planet. There's two ways of solving that and helping our economy. There's way number one, we just keep going like we are. Then we're going to lower our standards of living because there's going to be less production in comparison to the amount of people on this planet. Pretty much everybody's very afraid of lowering their standards of living. That includes me. And much more afraid so than from the actual Terminator that some of them might be afraid of, which I guess is not going to come. Or we find a machine or some other solution that'll help us to close this gap, just like it did with the farmers. And the best horse in the stable that we have today is artificial intelligence. We might have a better idea even further down the road, but right now we don't have that, right? So there's no way around that, right? Not even more kids, more children. It's not going to be a solution because we're going to kill our planet with that. So that's the only way of improving productivity. Now, coming back to the real world, what is it that we do with our customers, just to give you an idea? I talked about the lawyer stuff, working through a 600-page contract in a mere seconds, marking things like this is what we want to do, the red part, you don't want to do this, the yellow part, the machine knows what it is, but it says, hey, dear human, please double check, I think you might want to have a look at that. GDPR, a very famous example, but it could be pretty much anything. We have automotive manufacturing industry, where they have a lot of requirements, laws, EU regulations, norms. They say, hey, we have to cluster that information because I want to build a plug to charge cars. So what do I have to adhere to? Which are the rules I have to apply in Norway, Finland, South Africa, and all the other 178 countries that they're providing this to? You could do this, well actually you couldn't as a human because it's too much stuff to read, or you could have a machine cluster that and say, hey, this all means the same thing. So it could well be that this here is describing what you're supposed to do in Finland, this here is describing what you're supposed to do in Norway, and this is what you're supposed to do in Germany. And the machines ask according to, hey, this is pretty much the same thing. So I think the baseline for building this plug is this. And if you build a plug like this, you would cover roughly 110 countries out of the box. There's always something special which you have to do for South Africa. I learned that from the automotive manufacturing. So that's always going to be a special case. But everything else, it just helps you to understand the vast amount of requirements that you're seeing. And again, so much text, so little time. Implementation in document management systems. That's a German example, but by the way, within semantics, language doesn't matter, right? Supporting 294 different languages. This here is about accounting with our big 4 customers. This says rental agreement at the left here. If you read this contract and you understand the contents of this contract, you would say, and that's what the machine does on the right-hand side, this is not rental, this is leasing, which I've been told is from an accounting perspective something completely different by January 1st, 2019. So you could ask your box system, whatever else document management system you have, show me all my leasing contracts. And it would come back with a contract that says rental on it. It's like, why that? Well, because it doesn't mean rental. It could say Mikko Eklöf. Is that your name? Mikko Eklöf on the front page. It doesn't matter. It means leasing. And that's the important part. A human can easily do that, right? Or Hertz car rental. They just want to double check what do they have on their rental agreements in comparison to Avis, Budget, Alamo, all the others. They did that with lawyers. Cost them roughly for each update they had this done, costs roughly $150,000 and takes about 3 weeks to process that by lawyers. Takes about 1.5 seconds now to compare what they have with all the others. And it's funny to see because the white spots are more interesting for them. Like, what do we have that the others do not seem to have? Accounting is at 2 of the big 4 accounting companies. Doing stuff, again, that's a German example, but it doesn't matter. Trying to figure out, hey, what part of that invoice is material? What is time? Simple for a human, right? If you have something that says red paint and painting the whole wall. Well, red paint is material. Painting the wall is material. Easy. Big car manufacturer, working through all their contracts. What they're doing is essentially, as you can see here, they get a drill down and they get a specific idea of what they're supposed to do in this part of the contract. But essentially, we're always looking for the same things in these contracts, and they're hundreds of pages long. Please come back with something like this and tell me what's in there. And essentially, they throw it in there, and a second later, the system says, listen, the change of control clause, as you would like it, is not in these documents. Not even any semantical derivative, like it's, like Tom runs away from Mike and Mike's trying to catch Tom. Like, not even that is in there. It's not in there. It gives you a very good idea of how it works. So to sum this up, when I say work with us, I don't mean us specifically, but the AI industry. Talk with us, because you have the domain knowledge of what you might want to do. You have to understand what AI can do, and most importantly, what it can do for you, and therefore being able to incorporate that in your processes. It's not that expensive. I know there have been a lot of projects out there. There was a lot of overselling on PowerPoint. Try to get a solution within a couple of weeks and then just go from there. It works only with your domain expertise. I just mentioned that. And I said we already work with a couple of companies, which I'm more than happy to show you. So this is not just slide. Coming back to the first rule of AI. Hard problems are easy, and easy problems are hard to do. And the former ones are probably the ones that you have in your businesses, right? It's not about finding orange juice. It's about doing stuff that you do in your processes, in your SAP systems, in your CRM systems, whatever else you're doing. I don't know. Let's discuss that. Thank you, and good morning again.